They said I was broken, cursed, a stain upon the pack that should have been scrubbed away years ago. The healer's words still echoed in my mind, spoken when I was barely 16. Your womb is cold, child, barren as winter stone. No mate will ever choose you. No pup will ever call you mother. I'd learned to carry those words like chains, heavy, suffocating, inevitable. My name is Sera. Once, I had another name, a family name that meant something in the Riverside Pack. But after the diagnosis, after the truth of my curse became pack knowledge, that name was stripped away. Now I was just Sera, the barren one, the cursed Omega, who couldn't fulfill the most basic purpose of her existence. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The pack had made sure I understood my place. Not quite cast out, but not quite accepted either. I lived in the servants' quarters, worked in the kitchens from dawn until long after dark, and kept my eyes down whenever ranked wolves passed by. Especially the alphas. Alphas needed heirs. Strong bloodlines. A future. I could offer them nothing but shame. Sera, the head cook's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Stop daydreaming and finish those dishes. The Alpha King's delegation arrives within the hour, and if this kitchen isn't spotless, it'll be your hide. My hands moved automatically, scrubbing plates until they gleamed. The Alpha King. Even his title sent whispers of fear and fascination through the pack. Cale Thornwood, ruler of the Northern Territories, the most powerful alpha in 5 generations. They said he was ruthless in battle, cold as winter frost, and devastatingly handsome, though I'd never dare look at him directly to confirm it. They also said he was searching for a mate. Every unmated female in the pack had been preening for weeks, hoping to catch his eye during this diplomatic visit. Every female except me. I wasn't even allowed to serve at the formal dinner. Too much risk that my presence might taint the proceedings, that some alpha might catch my scent and recognize the brokenness in me. Better to keep the cursed Omega hidden in the kitchens where she belonged. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. Roasted venison with herb crust, honey-glazed root vegetables, fresh bread still steaming from the ovens. The smells were intoxicating, but I'd learned long ago not to hope for more than scraps. Omegas like me didn't deserve the feast. As the sun began to set, casting orange light through the kitchen windows, the head cook suddenly grabbed my arm. The Alpha King's quarters need fresh linens. Everyone else is busy with the dinner service. Go, now. And don't touch anything you're not supposed to. I nodded quickly, grateful for a task that took me away from the kitchen's oppressive heat. The Alpha King's quarters were in the east, wing the finest rooms our pack house had to offer. As I gathered the linens and made my way through the corridors, I couldn't help but notice how empty the halls were. Everyone was either preparing for or attending the feast. Everyone except me. The Alpha King's door stood open, and I slipped inside quietly, my arms full of fresh sheets. The room was magnificent, larger than the entire servants' quarters, with a massive 4-poster bed, rich tapestries on the walls, and a fireplace big enough to stand in. Windows overlooked the forest, where the full moon was just beginning to rise. I worked quickly, stripping the bed and replacing the linens with practiced efficiency. Don't linger. Don't touch anything unnecessary. Don't give them any reason to notice you. But as I smoothed the final pillowcase into place, something caught my eye. On the bedside table lay a small leather journal, left open as if someone had been interrupted while writing. I knew I shouldn't look. Knew it was a violation of privacy. But my eyes betrayed me, catching a few lines written in bold, masculine handwriting. The elders pressure me for an heir. Every pack I visit parades their eligible females like prized breeding stock. They see only my title, my power, the bloodline they could claim through me. Not one has asked what I want, what I need. Perhaps what I seek doesn't exist, a mate who sees the man behind the crown, who doesn't flinch from the darkness I carry. My breath caught. The words were so raw, so unexpectedly vulnerable from a king known for his cold authority. Before I could read more, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Panic seized me. I wasn't supposed to be here when he returned. I spun toward the door, but I was too late. He filled the doorway like a living storm. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just past his collar, and eyes the color of steel in moonlight. The sheer presence of him stole the air from my lungs. Power radiated from him in waves, not just the authority of rank, but something deeper, primal, ancient. This was an Alpha King, and I was trapped in his private chambers. "Who are you?" His voice was low, controlled, but I heard the edge of warning in it. His eyes swept over me, taking in my worn servant's dress, my hastily braided hair, the way I clutched the bundle of used linens like a shield. I'm sorry, Your Majesty." I dropped into a deep curtsy, keeping my eyes fixed on the floor. "I was just changing the linens. I'll leave immediately." "Look at me." The command was soft but absolute. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to keep my eyes down where they belonged. But an Alpha King's order wasn't a request. Slowly, I raised my gaze to meet his. The moment our eyes locked, the world tilted sideways. Something slammed into my chest, not physical, but just as forceful. A recognition that went bone deep, soul deep, beyond anything I could name or understand. My wolf, dormant and silent for so long, suddenly stirred with a desperate whine. "Mate, no, that was impossible. I was broken, cursed, barren. I couldn't be anyone's mate, least of all an Alpha King who needed heirs to secure his bloodline." But the pull was undeniable, and from the way Cale Thornwood's eyes widened, the way his nostrils flared as he caught my scent, I knew he felt it too. "What's your name?" His voice had changed, gone rougher, more intense. "Sera." My own voice came out barely above a whisper. "Just Sera. Just Sera," he repeated, moving into the room with predatory grace. Each step brought him closer, and I should have retreated, should have fled, but I was frozen. "Why do I not know your name? Every eligible female in this pack was presented to me at the feast." Heat flooded my cheeks. I wasn't at the feast, Your Majesty. I'm not eligible." His brow furrowed. "Why not?" The question hung in the air between us. This was it, the moment I would have to confess what I was, what I lacked. The moment this impossible pull, this recognition, would shatter into disgust and rejection. It wouldn't be the first time. "I'm cursed," I said quietly, each word like glass in my throat. "Barren. I can't bear children. I can't be anyone's mate." Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I waited for him to recoil, to dismiss me, to order me from his presence. That's what any alpha would do, what any alpha should do. Instead, Cale Thornwood closed the remaining distance between us in 2 strides. Before I could react, his hand came up, not to strike, but to cut my face with surprising gentleness. His touch sent electricity racing across my skin, and I gasped. "Look at me, Sera," he commanded again, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "Really look at me." I did, and what I saw in those steel-gray eyes wasn't disgust or disappointment. It was something fierce and possessive and utterly devastating. "Do you feel it?" he asked, his voice rough with barely controlled emotion. "This pull between us?" "Yes," I whispered. "But it doesn't matter. I'm broken. You're not broken." The words came out with such absolute conviction that they shocked me into silence. "You're mine. But the curse, I don't care about curses." His other hand came up to frame my face, holding me as if I were something precious rather than worthless. "I don't care about prophecies or politics or what anyone else thinks you should be." His eyes searched mine with an intensity that made me feel stripped bare, seen in a way no one had ever seen me before. "You're my mate," he said, each word weighted with finality. "My true mate, given to me by the moon herself. Do you understand what that means?" I shook my head, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "It means you're perfect exactly as you are." His voice dropped to a low rumble that resonated through my entire body. "It means every cell in my body recognizes you, wants you, needs you, not for what you can give me, but for who you are." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "But you need heirs," I protested weakly. Even as hope terrifying, fragile hope began to bloom in my chest. An Alpha King needs children too. An Alpha King needs a true mate. He cut me off, his grip on my face tightening just slightly. "Everything else can be figured out. But this connection between us, this is sacred, rare. Do you know how many Alpha Kings never find their true mates? How many settle for political matches and spend their lives feeling incomplete?" I didn't know. I'd never thought about it. I'd been too busy surviving my own worthlessness to consider the struggles of kings. I have searched for you, Kale continued, his voice rough with emotion. For years, I've traveled to pack after pack, met hundreds of females, and felt nothing, not even a flicker of recognition. I'd begun to think the moon had forgotten me, that I was destined to rule alone. His thumb stroked my cheekbones, the gesture achingly tender. And then I walk into my chambers and find you, my mate, perfect and beautiful and mine. I'm not beautiful, I said automatically, the old wound speaking for me. I'm broken, worthless. The pack says, the pack is wrong. The authority in his voice made me shiver. And if anyone here has made you believe you're worthless, they'll answer to me for it. The threat wasn't empty. I could see it in the way his eyes hardened, the way alpha power rolled off him in waves. An alpha king's protection was absolute, and he was offering it to me. To me, the broken omega who wasn't supposed to matter to anyone. Why? The question burst from me before I could stop it. Why do you care? You just met me. You don't know anything about me except that I can't give you what every alpha needs. I know everything I need to know. His voice gentled again, the steel warming. I know your scent calls to my wolf like nothing ever has. I know that when I look at you, something in my chest eases for the first time in years. I know that you're terrified right now, and brave anyway. He leaned closer, until his forehead rested against mine, until we were breathing the same air. And I know that the moon doesn't make mistakes, Sera. If she chose you as my mate, it's because you're exactly who I need, exactly who was meant to stand beside me. I don't know how to stand beside a king, I whispered, tears streaming freely now. I don't even know how to be worth choosing. Then I'll teach you. The promise resonated with Alpha Command, not forcing, but offering. I'll show you every day that you're worthy, that you matter, that you're mine to protect and cherish and claim. The word claim sent a shiver through me. Among wolves, claiming meant the mating bond permanent, unbreakable, sacred. Once an alpha claimed his mate, they were bound for life. I can't, I said, even though every fiber of my being screamed at me to say yes. If you claim me and later regret it, if you realize you need someone who can give you children, I won't regret it. He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, and what I saw there stole my breath. Listen to me very carefully, Sera. I have lived for 32 years. I have ruled the Northern Territories for a decade. I have made decisions that affected thousands of lives, fought battles that determined the fate of packs, and never once have I been uncertain about what mattered. His hand slid from my face down to my shoulders, then down my arms until his fingers interlaced with mine. You matter, he said, each word deliberate and clear. This bond matters. Everything else errs, bloodlines, pack politics, we'll figure it out together. But I will not reject my true mate because of other people's expectations. Your pack will expect, my pack will respect my choice. And if they don't, a dangerous smile curved his lips. They'll learn to. The certainty in his voice, the unwavering conviction, made something inside me crack open. All my life, I'd been taught that my worth was measured by what I could provide. Children, bloodline, a womb that worked. But Kale was looking at me like I mattered simply because I existed. Because I was his. I'm scared, I admitted in a whisper. Good. His smile softened. That means you understand how precious this is, how rare. He released one of my hands to reach up and tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture so gentle it made my heart ache. I won't push you, Sera. I won't force a claiming before you're ready. But know this from this moment forward, you're under my protection. No one in this pack, or any other, will harm you, belittle you, or make you feel less than you are. And what am I? The question came out broken, vulnerable. His answer was immediate, absolute. Mine. The knock on the door shattered the fragile bubble of safety we'd created. Kale's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The tender male who'd been cradling my face disappeared, replaced by the cold, commanding Alpha King. But he didn't let me go. If anything, his grip on my hand tightened. Enter, he called, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. The door opened to reveal a tall, silver-haired man I recognized as Beta Marcus, second in command of our pack. His eyes swept the room, landing on me with barely concealed disdain before shifting to Kale. Your Majesty, Alpha Davon requests your presence in the council chamber. There are Matters to discuss regarding the trade agreements. Tell Alpha Davon I'll join him shortly, Kale replied, his tone brooking no argument. But Beta Marcus didn't leave. His gaze flickered back to me, lingering on our joined hands with obvious disapproval. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but Alpha Davon was quite insistent. He's assembled the council and several eligible females from prominent families who are eager to, I said shortly, Beta. Marcus. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Was there something unclear about my response? The Beta's jaw tightened, but he bowed stiffly. Of course, Your Majesty. I'll inform the Alpha. His eyes cut to me one more time, sharp with warning, before he withdrew. The moment the door closed, I tried to pull my hand free. You should go. I shouldn't be here. If they find out... Find out what? Kale's voice was deceptively calm. That I found my mate? That's exactly what they're going to find out. Panic clawed at my throat. No, please. You don't understand what will happen. The pack, they'll what, Sera? He turned to face me fully, and I saw the predator beneath the civilized exterior. Disrespect my mate? Question my choice? Please, let them try. You don't know what they've done to me, I said, my voice breaking. You don't know what it's like to be worthless in their eyes. If you claim me publicly, if you tell them I'm your mate, they'll find ways to hurt me, to prove I'm not worthy, to make you see that you made a mistake. Something deadly flickered in Kale's eyes. Tell me, he said quietly. Tell me what they've done to you. I shook my head, but his hand came up to cup my cheek again, and the gentle touch undid me. Tell me, he repeated, softer this time. Let me know what I'm protecting you from. So I did. I told him about the healer's diagnosis when I was 16, delivered not privately, but in front of the entire Pack Council, how my father had turned away from me in shame, how my mother had wept not for my pain, but for the dishonor I'd brought to our family name. I told him about being moved to the servants' quarters, about the other Omegas who whispered that my curse might be contagious, about the unmated Alphas who propositioned me anyway, because a barren Omega was good for one thing, even if she couldn't give them pups. I told him about the Beta's daughter who'd thrown hot kitchen water at me last year, scarring my shoulder, because I'd looked too long at her chosen mate, about how no one had punished her, because what did it matter what happened to the cursed one? With each confession, I watched Kale's expression grow darker, more dangerous. His alpha power filled the room like a living thing, making the air thick and hard to breathe. Names, he said when I finally fell silent. I want the names of everyone who hurt you. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. His voice was barely controlled fury. You are my mate. Any harm done to you is an attack on me, on my authority, on everything I am. I'd never had anyone defend me before, never had anyone care enough to be angry on my behalf. The feeling was overwhelming, terrifying, and achingly beautiful all at once. The Beta's daughter, I whispered. Lissa. She's one of the females they wanted you to meet tonight. Her father has been pushing the match for months. Kale's smile was all teeth. Has he... now? Please don't make this worse, I begged. If you reject her because of me, they'll make my life hell. Just let me go. Pretend this never happened. Choose someone worthy. You are worthy. He cut me off, his hands framing my face again. And I'm not letting you go. Not now. Not ever. But, do you trust me, Sera? The question stopped me cold. Did I trust him? I barely knew him, but as I looked into those steel-gray eyes, felt the steadiness of his hands on my face, sensed the absolute conviction radiating from him, I realized something terrifying. I did trust him. Against all logic, despite years of learning to trust no one, I trusted this Alpha King I'd just met. Yes, I whispered. Then trust me to handle this. Trust me to protect what's mine. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead to mine again. I need to go deal with your Alpha and his council. But I want you to stay here, in my quarters. Don't go back to the servants' area. Don't let anyone. I'll tell you that you don't belong here. They'll come looking for me. The head cook will. The head cook answers to me while I'm a guest in this pack house. His voice carried absolute authority, as does everyone else. You stay here, where you're safe. Understood? I wanted to argue, to point out all the ways this would go wrong. But the look in his eyes stopped me. This wasn't a request from a mate. It was an order from an Alpha King. "Yes, Your Majesty," I said softly. "Kale." His voice gentled. "When we're alone, I'm just Kale. Just Kale." As if a king could ever be just anything. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, brief, chaste, but it sent electricity racing through my entire body, and then he was gone, striding from the room with lethal purpose. I stood alone in the Alpha King's chambers, my hand pressed to my forehead where his lips had been, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life, or if, somehow, I'd just been saved. I didn't have long to wonder. 10 minutes after Kale left, the door burst open. I spun around, expecting guards or maybe the head cook coming to drag me back to the kitchens. Instead, I found myself face to face with Lissa, the beta's daughter. She was beautiful in the way high-born wolves often were, golden hair, perfect features, curves in all the right places, everything I wasn't. She wore a dress of deep blue silk that probably cost more than I made in a year, and her face was twisted with fury. "So it's true," she hissed, slamming the door behind her. "The Alpha King actually brought you to his chambers. You, of all the worthless creatures." I backed up instinctively, years of conditioning making me retreat from her rage. I was just changing the linens. "Don't lie to me." She advanced on me like a predator. And I suddenly remembered the hot water, the scar on my shoulder, the casual cruelty she was capable of. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "My father has been negotiating this match for months. The Alpha King was supposed to choose me. Me. I didn't do anything," I protested, continuing to back up until I hit the bedpost. "I didn't ask for—" "You seduced him, didn't you?" Her eyes glittered with malice. "Used whatever cursed Omega tricks you have to get your claws into him. Did you think he wouldn't find out what you are? Did you think you could hide your barrenness long enough to trap him? No, He'll reject you the moment he learns the truth," Lissa spat. "The Alpha King needs heirs, and you can't give him any. You're worthless, broken, a stain on this pack that should have been cast out years ago." Each word was a knife I'd heard before, but somehow they cut deeper coming from her now. Because she was right, wasn't she? Kale might feel the mate bond now, but once he truly understood what it meant to be tied to a Barren Omega, once his pack pressured him for heirs he couldn't have, he would regret me. "I'll make you a deal," Lissa said, her voice dropping to something almost conspiratorial. "Leave. Tonight. Disappear before the Alpha King can make any official claims. I'll even give you money enough to start over somewhere far from here, somewhere no one knows what you are." For a moment, the offer was tempting. Running was what I knew. Hiding was how I'd survived this long. But then I remembered Kale's words. "You're perfect exactly as you are." I remembered the way he'd looked at me, like I mattered, like I was worth defending. "No," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. "I'm not leaving." Lissa's expression transformed into something ugly. "Then you're even stupider than I thought." She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin hard enough to draw blood. "Did you really think a king would choose you? You're nothing. A broken Omega who can't even fulfill your most basic purpose." "Let her go." The voice came from the doorway, and we both froze. But it wasn't Kale who'd spoken. It was a woman I didn't recognize, tall and elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes the same steel gray as Kale's. She wore traveling clothes, but the way she held herself screamed authority. "Now," the woman added, her voice soft but absolutely commanding. Lissa released me immediately, dropping into a hasty curtsy. "I apologize, Lady Morrigan. I was just—" "Assaulting the Alpha King's mate?" Lady Morrigan, whoever she was, raised one elegant eyebrow. "Because that's what it looked like from where I was standing." The blood drained from Lissa's face. "His mate? But she's just a servant. A cursed one, at that. Everyone knows she can't. Everyone knows nothing." Lady Morrigan interrupted coldly. "Except that you've just committed a grievous offense. Guards." Two massive warriors appeared in the doorway so quickly they must have been waiting just outside. "Escort Beta Marcus's daughter to the holding cells, Lady," Morrigan ordered. "She'll remain there until the Alpha King decides her punishment for laying hands on his mate." "You can't do this!" Lissa shrieked, as the guards seized her arms. "My father is the beta of this pack. He'll watch his daughter face the consequences of her actions," Lady Morrigan said with icy finality. "Take her away." The guards dragged Lissa from the room, her protests echoing down the corridor. Then Lady Morrigan's attention turned to me, and I found myself pinned by that steel-gray gaze. "Well," she said, closing the door and moving into the room with fluid grace. "You're certainly not what I expected." I dropped into the deepest curtsy I could manage, keeping my eyes on the floor. "I'm sorry, my lady. I don't know who you are, but I apologize for any trouble I've—" "Oh, stand up, child." Her voice was exasperated but not unkind. "I'm Morrigan Thornwood, Cale's mother, and you must be the mate who's had my son in absolute chaos for the past hour." His mother, the former Alpha Queen. I felt lightheaded. "I'm nobody," I said automatically. "Just Sera. I'm nobody important." "Nobody important?" Morrigan's lips curved into a smile that reminded me painfully of Cale's. "My dear girl, you're the one thing my son has been searching for his entire adult life. That makes you very important indeed." She moved closer, and I forced myself to remain still as she circled me, examining me like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "They said you're cursed," she observed. "Barren." The word, coming from her, felt like a physical blow. "Yes, my lady." "And my son knows this?" "Yes. Yet he claims you as his mate anyway." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "He says the curse doesn't matter, that the mate bond is what's important." Morrigan stopped in front of me, her gaze piercing. "And what do you say?" "Sera, nobody important." "Do you believe him?" "Did I? Could I? I want to," I whispered. "But I've spent so many years being told I'm worthless, that my inability to bear children makes me less than nothing. How can I believe that a king would truly want someone like me?" "Because he's not just any king," Morrigan said softly. "He's my son, and I raised him to value what matters: loyalty, courage, truth, not bloodlines and political convenience." She reached out and gently lifted my chin, forcing me to meet her eyes. "Did you know that I was rejected by my first mate?" she asked quietly. "Before I met Cale's father?" I shook my head, shocked. I was too strong-willed, too opinionated, too unwilling to be decorative and silent. My first mate chose someone more suitable and cast me aside. Her smile was sad. "I thought I was broken, unworthy, until Cale's father found me and showed me that the right mate doesn't want you to be anything other than exactly who you are." Tears burned my eyes. "But I really am broken. It's not just personality. I physically can't give Cale what he needs." "Heirs?" Morrigan's eyebrow arched. "There are many ways to secure a bloodline, Sera. Adoption, nephews and nieces who could be named as heirs, politics and creativity." She leaned closer. "What Cale needs is a true mate, someone who will stand beside him, challenge him, support him. Everything else is just details." "The pack will never accept me," I said, gesturing to where Lissa had been. "You saw what just happened. And she's not the only one who—" "The pack will accept who their king tells them to accept," Morrigan interrupted firmly. "And anyone who doesn't will answer to me." The fierce protectiveness in her voice made something crack open in my chest. This woman, this former queen, was defending me, believing in me, claiming me as family. "I don't know how to be what he needs," I confessed. "I don't know how to be a queen." "Neither did I when I started," Morrigan said with surprising gentleness. "Being a queen isn't about being perfect, Sera. It's about being strong enough to stand beside your mate when the world tries to tear you apart." She took my hands in hers, and I was startled by the warmth of her grip. "My son has faced countless battles, made impossible decisions, and carried the weight of thousands of lives on his shoulders," she continued. "And through all of it, I've watched him grow harder, colder, more alone, until tonight." Her eyes searched mine. Tonight, I saw him smile. Really smile, not the political mask he wears for courtiers. I heard him laugh with his beta about finally finding you. I watched the ice around his heart begin to crack. She squeezed my hands. "You've already given him something no one else could. Don't let fear of your perceived unworthiness steal that away from both of you." Before I could respond, the door opened again and Cale strode in, his expression thunderous. When he saw his mother holding my hands, he stopped short. "Mother, I should have known you'd arrive before morning. Someone had to make sure. Your mate wasn't being terrorized in your absence," Morrigan replied mildly. "Good thing too, considering I found Beta Marcus's whelp in here threatening her." Cale's eyes found the scratches on my arm where Lissa's nails had dug in, and the temperature in the room dropped to Arctic levels. "Arb, she hurt you." It wasn't a question. The deadly calm in his voice was somehow more terrifying than rage. "It's nothing," I said quickly. "Just scratches. Lady Morrigan handled it. Where is she?" Cale's question was directed at his mother. "Holding cells. Awaiting your judgment." He nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then his attention shifted fully to me, and the coldness melted into something warmer but no less intense. "Are you all right?" "Yes. Your mother." I glanced at Morrigan, who smiled knowingly. "She was very kind." "She'd better be," Cale said, moving to my side and examining my arm with gentle fingers. "She's about to be your family." The casual way he said it, as if there was no question, no doubt about our future, made my heart stutter. "Cale," Morrigan said quietly, "perhaps you should tell Sera what happened in the council chamber." His jaw tightened, and I felt a spike of fear. Had they convinced him, made him see reason, shown him why a barren mate was impossible for a king? "The council was displeased," he said carefully, "when I announced that I'd found my mate and wouldn't be considering any other matches." My heart sank. "I'm so sorry." "Don't." His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek. "Don't apologize for being mine. I told them that my mate is non-negotiable, that anyone who disrespects or harms you will be considered a traitor to the crown." "Alpha Davon tried to argue," Morrigan added with a hint of grim satisfaction. "He made the mistake of calling you that cursed Omega within Cale's hearing." I winced. "What did you do?" "I removed him as Alpha of Riverside Pack," Cale said flatly. "Effective immediately. His second will take over until a proper replacement can be chosen." The room spun. You removed an Alpha? Because of me?" "Because he insulted my mate and showed he's unfit to lead," Cale corrected. "A true leader protects all members of their pack, especially the vulnerable. Davon failed in that duty long before I arrived." He pulled me against his chest, and I could hear his heartbeat strong, steady, sure. "I meant what I said earlier, Sera. You're mine, under my protection, and I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you." Wrapped in his arms, with his mother watching with approval, I finally let myself believe it. I was safe. I was chosen. I was wanted. But as I would soon learn, not everyone would accept the Alpha King's choice, and some threats came from places we'd never expected. The next 3 days passed in a strange dream. Cale refused to let me return to the servants' quarters. Instead, I stayed in his chambers, which scandalized the pack but seemed to delight Morrigan, who took it upon herself to become my unexpected champion. "Ignore the whispers," she told me as we walked through the gardens on the second morning. "They'll accept you eventually, and if they don't, well, that's what royal decrees are for." I learned that Cale had more than just removed Alpha Davon. He'd also stripped Beta Marcus of his rank for failing to protect a vulnerable pack member, me, and for his daughter's assault. The former Beta and Lissa had been given a choice: exile or imprisonment. They'd chosen exile. "Good riddance," Morrigan had said when she told me. "Though I suspect they won't go quietly. The ambitious never do." She was more right than she knew. It happened on the third night, during the new moon when the pack's wolves were at their weakest. I'd fallen asleep in Cale's bed. He'd insisted I take it while he took the couch, the perfect gentleman, despite the mate bond thrumming between us when something woke me. A sound, a smell, something wrong. I sat up, my enhanced Omega senses newly awakened since meeting Cale, as if the mate bond had unlocked something dormant, screaming danger. The window was open. I knew I'd closed it before bed. "Cale?" I called softly, but there was no answer from the sitting room. Fear iced my veins. I climbed out of bed, wearing only the nightgown Morrigan had given me, and crept toward the door. My hand had just closed around the handle when it burst open, but it wasn't Cale on the other side. It was a man I'd never seen before, tall, with cold eyes and a smile that made my skin crawl. Behind him stood 2 others, all of them radiating the dangerous energy of alphas. Well, the leader purred, his eyes raking over me in a way that made me want to scrub my skin raw. "The cursed little Omega who's bewitched the Northern King. You're even prettier than they said." I backed up instinctively. "Who are you? How did you get in here? How rude of me." His smile widened. "I'm Caius Blackwater. Perhaps you've heard of me?" I had. Caius Blackwater was the alpha of the Western Territories and Cale's greatest rival. They'd been at war 3 years ago over border disputes, ending in an uneasy truce that everyone knew was temporary. "Where's Cale?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "The Alpha King is currently occupied," Caius replied, examining his nails with feigned disinterest. "A small disturbance in the East Wing, probably nothing serious. A few guards injured, some fire damage. These things happen." My blood ran cold. "You attacked his guards. You're trying to start a war." "Oh, I don't need to try, little Omega." He moved into the room, and his men followed, blocking the door. "The Northern King started this war the moment he decided to claim a defective mate." The word hit me like a physical blow, but I lifted my chin. "Get out. When Cale finds out you're here, he'll do what? Defend your honor?" Caius laughed. "That's exactly what I'm counting on. You see, I need Kyle to break the truce. I need him to attack first so I can justify the retaliation that will finally break his power. And threatening his precious mate? Well, that should do the trick nicely." He lunged forward faster than I could react, his hand closing around my throat. Not squeezing hard enough to kill, but enough to terrify. "Here's what's going to happen," he whispered, his breath hot against my face. "I'm going to take you back to my territory. When Cale comes for you, and he will, I'll be waiting with an army. He'll walk right into my trap because he's foolish enough to value one broken Omega over strategic thinking. He'll kill you," I gasped out, my hands clawing at his grip. "Maybe. Or maybe I'll kill him first." Caius shrugged. "Either way, the North will fall into chaos, and I'll be there to pick up the pieces. Win-win." He started dragging me toward the window, and I realized with horror that there were ropes anchored, and their escape route. I struggled, but his grip was iron, and the other 2 alphas moved to help him. Then the door exploded inward. Cale stood in the doorway, and he was terrifying. His eyes had gone pure alpha glowing silver with fury and power rolled off him in waves that made the air itself feel heavy. Blood stained his shirt from whatever fight he'd been in, and his hands were already shifting, claws extending. "Let her go." Each word was a growl, barely human. "Ah, there you are," Caius said cheerfully, though I felt his hand tighten on my throat. "Right on schedule. I was just borrowing your mate for a bit. You don't mind, do you?" Last chance, Blackwater." "Last chance, Blackwater." Cale's voice dropped even lower, more animal than man. "Release my mate and I'll make your death quick. See, I don't think you're in a position to negotiate." Caius yanked me closer, and I cried out as his claws pricked my skin. One wrong move and I snap her neck. A little thing like this? It would be so easy. I saw the calculation in Cale's eyes, the terrible choice he was facing. Save me and risk playing into Caius's trap, or let me be taken and lose his mate. But I wasn't going to let him make that choice. I'd spent my whole life being a burden, being the one who needed protection. Not anymore. With every ounce of strength I had, I jerked my head back, slamming it into Caius's nose. His grip loosened just enough for me to drop my weight, becoming dead weight in his arms. It threw him off balance, and in that split second of distraction, Cale moved. He was across the room in a blur, moving with inhuman speed. His hand closed around Caius's wrist, the one holding me, and I heard bones snap. Caius screamed, releasing me, and I fell to the floor. The other 2 alphas lunged at Kyle, but he was already moving, a whirlwind of controlled violence. One went down with a crushed windpipe, the other took a claw across his face that left him howling and blinded. Caius tried to run for the palace window, but Cale caught him by the throat, slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack stone. "You touched my mate," Cale snarled, his face inches from Caius's. "You threatened what's mine." "Go ahead," Caius gasped, his face turning purple. "Kill me. Break the truce. Start the war. That's what I wanted anyway." For a moment, I thought Cale would do it. I could see the desire to end this threat permanently warring with the knowledge that it would cost thousands of lives. "Cale," I whispered, finding my voice. Don't let him turn you into what he wants." His eyes found mine across the room, and I saw him fighting for control. Slowly, the silver faded back to steel gray. The claws retracted, but his grip on Caius's throat remained iron. "You're right," he said quietly. "Killing you would start a war, so instead, I'm going to make you wish I had." He dragged Caius to the window and dangled him outside, 3 stories up. You want my territory so badly? Then let's see if you can fly to claim it. Wait, Caius's bravado cracked. You can't? I can do whatever I want. I'm the Alpha King. Cale's smile was all teeth. Cales, but I'll make you a deal. Swear a blood oath right now that you'll never set foot in the Northern Territories again, that you'll never threaten my mate or anyone under my protection, and I'll let you crawl back to your own lands in shame instead of falling to your death. You're insane. Cale's hand loosened, and Caius dropped a few inches before Cale caught him again. Swear it, or don't. Your choice. I swear, Caius screamed. Blood oath. I'll stay away from your territories, your mate, all of it. Say her name, Cale demanded. Say I swear on my blood that I will never harm Sera, mate to the Alpha King, or anyone under the Northern Crown's protection. Caius repeated it, the words tumbling out desperately, and I felt the magic seal a blood oath was unbreakable among wolves. The moment it was complete, Cale hauled him back inside and threw him at his injured companions. Get out of my sight, Cale said with deadly calm. Tell everyone in the Western Territories what happened here tonight. Tell them the Alpha King protected his mate. And if you ever forget your oath, if you even think about breaking it, remember this moment. Remember how easily I could have ended you. The 3 intruders limped and crawled from the room, leaving a trail of blood behind them. The moment they were gone, Cale turned to me, and all the cold authority melted into something raw and desperate. Sera. He crossed to me in 2 strides, dropping to his knees beside where I still sat on the floor. His hands hovered over me, as if afraid to touch. Did he hurt you? Tell me where. I'm okay. My voice came out shakier than I wanted. Just scared. You came in time. Not soon enough. His jaw clenched as he saw the red marks on my throat where Caius had gripped me. He touched you. Threatened. You. Because of me. Not because of you, I corrected softly, reaching up to touch his face. Because he's ambitious and cruel, and saw an opportunity. That's not your fault. You're in danger because you're mine, he insisted, his eyes tortured. Maybe they're right. Maybe you'd be safer if I let you go. Don't you dare. I surprised myself with the fierceness in my voice. Don't you dare use this as an excuse to push me away because you're scared of losing me. His eyes widened. I'm not. You are. I can feel it through the bond. And I could. The fear, the guilt, the terrible love that made him want to protect me even from himself. But I'm not going anywhere, Cale. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be locked away to stay safe. I'm your mate. That means I stand beside you, not behind you. You could have died tonight. But I didn't. We fought him together. I pulled his forehead down to mine, the gesture he'd used on me now reversed. This is what it means, and to be mated, remember? We faced the darkness together. Something broke in him then. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe, and I felt him shaking. I was in the east wing dealing with a fire, he said against my hair. When I felt your fear through the bond, when I realized what was happening. I've never been so terrified in my life. I was pretty terrified too, I admitted. But you came. You saved me. You saved yourself first, he corrected, pulling back enough to look at me with something like awe. That move with your head, dropping your weight, that was brilliant. Where did you learn that? I didn't. I just reacted. I managed a weak smile. Survival instinct from years of being everyone's target, I suppose. You're not a target anymore. You're a queen. The way he said it, with such absolute conviction, made tears spring to my eyes. My queen. And it's time everyone understood that. Cale, I'm claiming you. Tonight. His voice carried alpha command. Publicly. Permanently. No more waiting. No more letting you doubt your place at my side. I want the bite, the bond, everything. If you'll have me. My breath caught. The claiming bite was sacred among wolves, more permanent than any human marriage. More binding than any contract. Once an alpha claimed his mate, they were one being in the eyes of the moon. What about heirs? I had to ask, even though it hurt. What about the pack's expectations? There are 100 children in my territory who've lost parents to war or sickness, Cale said fiercely. We'll adopt whichever ones call to us, raise them as our own, love them as if they came from our bodies. And if the pack doesn't like it, they can challenge me for the throne. His eyes burned into mine. I don't need children from your body, Sera. I need you. Your strength, your kindness, your courage. The way you make me feel like I'm not just a king, but a man. That's worth more than 1,000 heirs. You really mean that? I've never meant anything more in my life. He cupped my face in his hands, and I saw the truth of it written in every line of his expression. So I'm asking you properly, Sera, not as a king to his subject, but as a man to his mate. Will you accept my claim? Will you let me bind myself to you for the rest of our lives? I should have been scared. This was forever, irrevocable, a choice that would change everything. But as I looked into Cale's eyes, felt the rightness of our bond, remembered how safe I felt in his arms, I knew there was only one answer. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll accept your claim. I want to be yours. The smile that broke across his face was devastating in its beauty. Then let's not waste another moment. He swept me into his arms, and I gasped. What are you doing? Taking my mate to be claimed properly, before anything else can interrupt us. He carried me toward the door, and I heard footsteps in the hall. Morrigan appeared with several guards, taking in the scene with sharp eyes. Is it handled? She asked. For now. Blackwater swore a blood oath to stay away. Cale's arms tightened around me. Mother, I need you to summon the pack. All of them. In the Great Hall. Now. Morrigan's eyes lit with understanding and approval. The claiming ceremony? The claiming ceremony, Cale confirmed. Finally. She smiled at me warmly. I'll have everything ready within the hour. Should I send for the ritual herbs and... I don't care about herbs or traditions or ceremonies, Cale interrupted. I just need witnesses and the moon. The rest is between me and my mate. He carried me through the corridors, and I was dimly aware of pack members staring, whispering, scrambling to follow Morrigan's orders. But I only had eyes for Cale, for the fierce determination and tender love in his expression. Are you sure about this? I asked quietly as we entered the Great Hall, where pack members were already gathering. Once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be tied to a Barren Omega for life. Good, he said simply. That's exactly what I want. He set me on my feet at the center of the hall, where moonlight streamed through the open ceiling designed specifically for ceremonies like this. The pack gathered around us in a circle, their faces showing everything from awe to disapproval to curiosity. I saw the new Alpha Devon's former second, watching with careful neutrality. Saw Morrigan standing with her hands clasped and tears in her eyes. Saw the servants I'd worked with, their expressions shocked that one of their own was about to become a queen. Let them witness, Cale said, his voice carrying through the hall with alpha authority. Let them see that I claim this woman as my true mate, that I bind myself to her by choice, not obligation, that anyone who harms her or speaks against her will answer to me. He turned to face me, taking my hands in his. Sera, he said, his voice dropping to something more intimate, though everyone could still hear. You are the other half of my soul, the one I've been searching for, the peace I never thought I'd find. I offer you my protection, my loyalty, my love. Everything I am is yours, if you'll have it. Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. I accept, all of it, and I offer you the same everything I am, broken pieces and all. Not broken, he corrected gently, perfect. Then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't our first kiss, we'd shared a few stolen moments over the past 3 days, but this was different. This was claiming, possession, promise. His lips moved against mine with desperate tenderness, and I felt the mate bond between us flare to life, growing stronger, deeper, more unbreakable with every heartbeat. When he finally pulled back, his eyes had gone alpha again, but this time with desire, not rage. The bite, he murmured. Are you ready? I tilted my head, bearing my throat in, the ultimate sign of trust and submission. I'm ready. His lips traced down my jaw to my neck, and I shivered at the sensation. Then I felt his teeth sharp, careful press against the juncture where my neck met my shoulder. The claiming bite. When his teeth sank in, the world exploded. Power rushed through me, foreign and familiar all at once. I felt Cale's presence in my mind, not just impressions, but everything. His thoughts, emotions, the overwhelming love and fierce protectiveness he felt for me. And I knew he felt mine too. Felt every insecurity I'd ever had being soothed by his absolute acceptance. Mine? His voice whispered in my mind. Forever mine. Yours, I answered. Forever yours. When he pulled back, licking the wound closed so it would scar into his claiming mark, the pack erupted. Not in protest as I'd feared, but in howls of acknowledgement. Even those who'd disapproved couldn't deny the mate bond now. It was too strong, too obvious, too sacred. I was claimed. I was chosen. I was queen. Cale pulled me close, and I felt his heart beating in time with mine. How do you feel? He murmured. Complete, I whispered. For the first time in my life, I feel complete. Good. He kissed my forehead. Because we're going to have a long life together, you and I. Time to show everyone what a true queen looks like. As the pack celebrated around us, as Morrigan wiped tears from her eyes and the new alpha bowed in acknowledgement, I finally let myself believe it. My curse hadn't been broken. I would never bear children. But I'd been given something infinitely more precious. I'd been given love, choice, worth, and sometimes that was its own kind of magic. 3 months later, the first snow fell on the Northern Territories. I stood at the window of our private chambers, not in Riverside anymore, but in Thornridge Keep, Cale's ancestral home carved into the mountainside, and watched the flakes drift down like stars falling to earth. Behind me, I heard Cale enter, felt him through our bond before I even turned around. You're thinking too loud again, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind and resting his chin on my shoulder. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, I said, leaning back into his warmth. I'm just thinking. About. His lips brushed my ear, making me shiver. About how much has changed. I turned in his arms to face him. 3 months ago, I was scrubbing dishes in a kitchen, convinced I'd never be anything more than the cursed Omega everyone pitied. Now I'm Queen of the Northern Territories, he finished, his eyes warm. Beloved by the people, feared by our enemies, and absolutely adored by your mate. I laughed. I don't know about beloved by the people. I do. He pulled me toward the sitting area, where a fire crackled merrily. Do you know what happened yesterday while you were visiting the healing houses? I shook my head, settling onto the couch beside him. 3 different petitioners came to me asking if Queen Sera would be willing to consult on their cases. He grinned. One was a mother whose daughter has been sickly since birth. Another was a farmer whose crops keep failing despite his best efforts. The third was an elder who simply wanted to thank you for sitting with him last week and listening to his stories. Warmth bloomed in my chest. They asked for me specifically? They asked for you by name. Not the queen, not the Alpha King's mate. You, Sera. He cupped my face tenderly. Because in 3 months, you've shown them what a true leader looks like. Someone who cares more about their people than about status or power. I just try to help, I said quietly. The way I wish someone had helped me. I know. That's what makes you perfect for this. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, and I felt his love wash through our bond like a physical touch. Speaking of helping people, Mother sent word. She's found another 3 children who lost their parents in the border skirmishes last year. My heart clenched. Since the claiming, Cale and I had begun the process he'd promised, adopting children who'd been orphaned by war, sickness, or circumstance. We'd already brought 2 into our home. Finn, a serious 8-year-old boy who'd watched his parents die defending their village, and little Mara, a 6-year-old girl so shy she'd barely spoken for the first month. Now they were thriving. Finn had started training with the pack warriors, his grief slowly transforming into determination to protect others. Mara had discovered a love of the gardens and could often be found helping the groundskeepers, her laughter like bells ringing through the keep. 3 more? I asked. Do we know their ages? 10, 7, and 4. 2 boys and a girl. The oldest has been trying to care for his younger siblings alone. Cale's voice tightened with emotion. Mother says he's fiercely protective. Reminds her of me at that age. I squeezed his hand. Cale rarely spoke of his own childhood, but I'd learned through Morrigan that he'd lost his father young and had felt the weight of the crown pressing down on him from age 12. We should meet them, I said. See if they'd be comfortable here, with us. Are you sure? Cale studied my face carefully. 5 children is a lot, Sera. I don't want you to feel pressured to. I want this. I interrupted firmly. I want to give them what I never had. A home where they're valued for who they are, not what they can provide. A family that chooses them. His smile was radiant. "Have I mentioned today how much I love you?" "Not in the last hour," I teased, but my heart was full. A knock at the door interrupted us. "Enter," Cale called. One of his advisors, a silver-haired beta named Thomas, stepped inside and bowed. "Your Majesties, forgive the interruption, but there's a situation that requires your attention." Cale tensed beside me. "What kind of situation?" "A refugee. Situation, Your Majesty." Thomas's expression was grave. "A group of Omegas from the Western Territories has arrived at our borders seeking asylum. They claim they're fleeing persecution in Alpha Blackwater's lands." I felt Cale's surge of interest and concern through our bond. Since the Blood Oath, Caius Blackwater had kept his distance, but reports from the West suggested his rule had grown increasingly tyrannical. "How many?" I asked, rising to my feet. Thomas looked surprised that I'd spoken. He was still adjusting to having a queen who involved herself in governance, but answered promptly. 14, Your Majesty. 12 females and 2 males. Several are injured. All are terrified. Prepare guest quarters in the East Wing, I said immediately, then glanced at KL. With your permission, I'd like to go meet them. Make sure they're cared for properly. Pride flowed through our bond. Of course. Thomas, arrange an escort for the Queen, and send word to the healing. Houses will need healers standing by. I'll come with you, Cale added, standing and offering me his arm. If Blackwater is brutalizing Omegas in his territory, I want to hear about it firsthand. We made our way to the keep's entrance hall, where the refugees were being given warm drinks and blankets. The moment we entered, they all dropped into deep, fearful bows, their bodies trembling. Please, rise, I said gently, moving forward. You're safe here. No one will hurt you. Slowly, hesitantly, they straightened, and I saw faces haunted by trauma bruises, scars, the hollow-eyed look of people who'd endured too much. One Omega, a woman perhaps a few years older than me with a nasty burn across her forearm, stepped forward. Your Majesty, she said, her voice shaking. Thank you for granting us sanctuary. We didn't know where else to go. What happened? Cale asked, his voice gentle despite the alpha power that made several refugees flinch. Why did you flee? The woman. She introduced herself as Alara told a horrifying story. After his humiliation at Cale's hands, Caius Blackwater had returned to his territory consumed with rage. Unable to attack the North directly due to his blood oath, he'd turned his fury on his own people, specifically on Omegas. He said we're all worthless, Alara whispered, tears streaming down her face. That Omegas exist only to serve alphas, and if we can't even do that properly, we deserve whatever happens to us. He's been giving alphas in his pack free reign to... She couldn't finish, but she didn't need to. The implications were clear enough. Rage, white-hot and terrible, flooded through my bond with Cale. I gripped his hand, grounding him, reminding him silently that these people needed his protection, not his fury. You're safe now, he said, his voice deadly calm. All of you. You have sanctuary in the Northern Territories for as long as you need it, and I give you my word Alpha Blackwater will answer for his crimes. How? One of the male Omegas asked bitterly. You can't attack him. The Blood Oath prevents me from setting foot in Western Territory or harming him directly, Cale agreed. But it doesn't prevent me from accepting refugees, offering them protection, or making it known throughout all the territories exactly what kind of monster rules the West. He looked at me, and I saw the question in his eyes. This was my moment, my choice. These Omegas were my people, the vulnerable, the broken, the ones society had cast aside. I stepped forward, addressing the refugees directly. I was once like you, I said quietly. Cast out, called cursed, treated as worthless, because I couldn't bear children. My own pack saw me as a stain to be hidden away. Gasps rippled through the group. They'd heard I was queen, but clearly hadn't known my history. The Alpha King chose me anyway, I continued. Not in spite of what I lacked, but because of who I am. And he's shown me that worth isn't measured by what we can give others, but by the strength of our own hearts. I met each of their eyes in turn. You are not worthless. You are not broken. You are wolves, members of the pack, deserving of respect and protection, and as long as I am queen, you will have both. Alara dropped to her knees, sobbing. Thank you. Thank you. The others followed suit, but I shook my head. No bowing. Not to me. I'm not your ruler, I'm your sister. We've all walked similar paths of pain. Now we'll walk a new path together. I helped Alara to her feet, then looked at Thomas. These are not refugees. They are citizens of the Northern Territories now, with all the rights and protections that entails. Make sure they're given proper quarters, medical care, and whatever else they need. At once, Your Majesty. Thomas bowed and began organizing the logistics. As we watched the refugees being led to their new accommodations, Cale pulled me close. You constantly amaze me, he murmured. Do you know that? I just did what needed to be done. No. You did what a true queen does. You saw people in pain and made them feel valued. He kissed my temple. This is why the moon chose you for me. Not in spite of your past, but because of it. Your pain made you compassionate. Your rejection made you inclusive. Your curse became your greatest strength. I leaned into him, letting his words sink into the wounded places that still sometimes ached. 3 months of being loved, being valued, being chosen. It was healing me in ways I'd never thought possible. But there was still work to do. We need to do something about Blackwater, I said quietly. We can't let him continue brutalizing Omegas just because you're bound by an oath. I know. I've been thinking about that. Cale's eyes grew calculating. The blood oath prevents me from harming him or entering his territory, but it doesn't prevent other alphas from doing so. What are you suggesting? The Alpha. Council meets in 2 months. I'm going to bring formal charges against Blackwater for violating the most fundamental laws of Pack society, the protection of vulnerable members. His voice hardened. He'll be tried by his peers, and if found guilty, removed from power. Will they actually convict him? I asked skeptically. Political alliances will mean nothing when I present 14 witnesses to his crimes, plus whatever others come forward once they know it's safe. Cale's smile was sharp. And I'll make sure every alpha on that council understands that protecting wolves like Blackwater makes them complicit in his crimes. Pride swelled in my chest. My mate, the strategic genius. Your mate, who learned from his brilliant queen that sometimes the best way to fight isn't with claws and teeth, but with truth and justice. He turned to face me fully. I couldn't do this without you, Sera. Any of it. Yes, you could, I corrected. But I'm glad you don't have to. We stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other's arms and the warmth of our bond, watching the snow fall outside the windows. It was peaceful, perfect, everything I'd never dared to dream of. Sera? Cale's voice pulled me from my thoughts. There's something I need to tell you. He sounded almost nervous, which was so unlike him that I pulled back to look at his face. What is it? I received a letter today, from Riverside Pack. His jaw tightened. From your father. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard from my father since before the claiming. Hadn't wanted to. He'd made his feelings about me clear enough over the years. What did he want? To congratulate us on our mating. Cale's tone was carefully neutral. And to request an audience. He says he wants to apologize, to make amends. Bitterness welled up inside me. Now he wants to apologize. Now that I'm queen and can offer him political advantages. That's what I thought too, Cale admitted. Which is why I wanted to ask you before responding. Do you want to see him? Or should I send word that the queen is too busy for petitioners who only valued her after she gained status? The protective fury in his voice made me smile despite everything. You'd really do that? Turn away my own father? In a heartbeat. His eyes blazed. Anyone who made you feel worthless doesn't deserve access to you now, blood relation or not. I considered it. Part of me wanted to refuse, to let my father live with his choices the way I'd had to live with mine. But another part, the part that had been healed by Cale's love and Morrigan's acceptance, remembered that healing sometimes required closure. I'll see him, I said slowly. But on my terms. Here, in the keep, with you beside me. And if he's only interested in political gain, he'll be escorted out immediately. Done. Cale kissed my forehead. When? Give me a week. I want to be sure I'm ready. Take all the time you need. I'll be with you. Every step of the way. That week passed in a blur of activity. The refugee Omegas began settling into their new lives, with several expressing interest in learning trades or joining the guard. Finn and Mara helped them acclimate, their own experiences with loss creating unexpected bonds. Morrigan arrived with the 3 new orphans, and my heart broke and healed simultaneously when I met them. The oldest, Garrett, stood protectively in front of his siblings Cole and tiny Astrid watching us with wary, exhausted eyes. "I can work," he said immediately. "I'm strong. Just don't separate us. Please. We're all we have left." I knelt down to his level, ignoring propriety and protocol. "Garrett, we don't want you to work. We want to give you a home. All three of you. Together. Always." His lower lip trembled. "Why?" "Because we know what it's like to be alone," I said gently. "And because every child deserves to be chosen, to be wanted. Will you let us choose you?" He stared at me for a long moment, then burst into tears the first time. Morrigan told us later that he'd cried since his parents died. I held him while he sobbed, while little Astrid climbed into my lap, while Cole clutched Cale's hand like a lifeline. And just like that, our family grew by 3. By the time the day came to meet my father, I was ready. Not because my anger had disappeared, but because I'd finally internalized what Cale kept telling me. My worth wasn't defined by my father's acceptance. It never had been. We received him in the formal throne room, a deliberate choice. This wasn't a family reunion. This was a queen granting audience to a subject. My father looked older than I remembered. Smaller, somehow, though his physical size hadn't changed. He approached with hesitant steps, his eyes widening when he saw me seated on the throne beside Cale, wearing the silver circlet that marked my status as queen. "Sera," he breathed. You look like a queen," I supplied, keeping my voice neutral. "What did you expect, father? Did you think the curse would follow me here?" He flinched. "I deserved that. I deserve worse. Sera, I came to apologize. For everything. For failing you as a father. For letting the pack convince me you were worthless. For not defending you when..." His voice broke. "For not being the father you deserved." I'd imagined this moment so many times over the years. In my fantasies, I'd been cold and dismissive, making him feel the pain he'd caused me. But now, sitting here with Cale's steady presence beside me and the knowledge of my own worth settled deep in my bones, I found I didn't need revenge. I just needed truth. "Why now?" I asked. "Why apologize now, after all these years?" He looked down at his hands. "Because I saw what you've built here. I heard about the orphans you've taken in, the refugees you've protected, the changes you're making, and I realized that despite everything I failed to give you, you became exactly what your mother always said you would be." "My mother?" My voice caught. "She told me before she died that you were special, that you had a strength in you that would shine through if I just believed in it." Tears streamed down his face. I didn't believe her. I let fear and shame blind me to what was right in front of me. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Sera. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know." Cale's hand found mine, offering silent support. Through our bond, I felt his emotions anger at my father for the pain he'd caused, but also understanding that this moment was mine to navigate. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I said quietly. "Maybe someday, but not today. The wounds are still too fresh." My father nodded, more tears falling. "I understand. But," I continued, "I'm willing to start over. Not as father and daughter, you lost that right, but as queen and subject. If you can show me through actions, not words, that you've truly changed, then perhaps we can build something new." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." "It is," I agreed. "Don't waste it." He bowed deeply, not the casual bow of pack member to ranked wolf, but the full bow of subject to sovereign. When he straightened, I saw a flicker of the father I'd once loved, buried beneath years of shame and regret. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he whispered. "I wish she could see the queen you've become." After he left, Cale pulled me into his arms. "Are you all right?" "I think so." I leaned into his strength. It's strange. For so long, I wanted his approval more than anything. And now that I have it, or at least the potential for it, I realize I don't need it. I have everything I need right here. "Here, being in my arms?" he teased gently. "Here, being in this life we've built. You, the children, Morrigan, the people we're helping, this family we've chosen." I looked up at him. "I don't need my father's validation anymore, Cale, because I've learned to validate myself." His smile was brilliant. "There's my queen." That night, we stood on the balcony outside our chambers, watching the northern lights dance across the sky in ribbons of green and gold. Kale held me from behind, his arms wrapped securely around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked softly. "Choosing me? A mate who can't give you biological heirs?" "Never." The answer was immediate and absolute. Not once. Not even for a moment. "But, Sera, look at what we've built in 3 months. 5 children who were lost and alone now have a home and a family. 14 refugees who were brutalized have sanctuary and hope. A pack that's learning that strength comes in many forms, not just the ability to bear children." He turned me to face him, his eyes reflecting the aurora's light. "You've changed the North, my love. You've shown them what true leadership looks like. And you've given me something infinitely more precious than biological heirs. You've given me a family we chose together, children we saved, a legacy built on love, not just bloodline." "You really mean that," I whispered, seeing the truth in his eyes. With every fiber of my being, he cupped my face tenderly. "I told you once that you were perfect exactly as you are. Did you think that was just pretty words? Sera, you are my perfect mate, my perfect queen, my perfect partner in all things. Even though Stop." He pressed a finger gently to my lips. "Stop defining yourself by what you lack. Define yourself by what you have. Courage, compassion, strength, love. Those are your gifts. Those are what make you perfect for me." Tears streamed down my face, but they were healing tears. Release. Acceptance. "I love you," I whispered. "So much it scares me sometimes." "Good. It should scare you. Love this deep, this powerful, it's terrifying and exhilarating and worth every moment of fear." He kissed me, softly. "I love you too, Sera. My cursed Omega who became a queen. My rejected mate who became my salvation." "I like that," I said against his lips. "Salvation. Salvation. That's what you are. You saved me from a life of cold duty and political marriages. You showed me what it meant to be truly chosen, truly loved." His forehead rested against mine. "And every day, you save me again by being exactly who you are." We stood there under the northern lights, 2 souls who'd found each other against all odds. A king who needed someone to see the man behind the crown, an Omega who needed someone to see her worth beyond her womb. We were perfect for each other, not in spite of our flaws, but because of them. Epilogue, 1 year later. The great hall was filled with laughter as Garrett and Finn sparred with wooden swords under the watchful eyes of the weapons master. Mara was showing Astrid and Cole her latest garden discoveries, all 3 of them covered in dirt and beaming with joy. I watched, from my seat beside Kale's throne, one hand resting on my rounded belly. Yes, rounded belly. 3 months ago, I'd woken with a strange feeling. The healer I'd summoned had examined me with shock, then joy, then awe. "Your Majesty," she'd whispered. "You're pregnant." "That's impossible," I'd said automatically. "I'm barren. Cursed," the healers said. "The healers were wrong." She'd smiled through tears. "Or perhaps the mate bond healed what was broken. True mate bonds have been known to work miracles, Your Majesty. And this is certainly a miracle." When I'd told Kale, he'd stared at me in shock for a full minute before sweeping me into his arms and spinning me around, laughing with pure joy. "A child," he'd whispered against my hair. "Our child. But, Sera, you know this doesn't change anything, right? Biological or adopted, they're all our children, all equally loved." "I know," I'd said, crying happy tears. "But this feels like the moon's blessing. Her way of saying we were right to trust in love over expectation." Now 6 months later, I watched our 5 adopted children play while our biological child grew inside me, and I understood the truth at last. I had never been cursed. I had been waiting for the right mate, the right time, the right love to make the impossible possible. "What are you thinking about?" Kale asked, his hand covering mine where it rested on my belly. "How grateful I am," I said simply, "for all of it. The pain that led me here, the rejection that made me strong, the curse that taught me my worth isn't defined by my body." Wise words from my wise queen. He kissed my hand. "Though I still say you were never cursed. Just waiting." "Waiting for you," I agreed, smiling. In the year since our claiming, so much had changed. Caius Blackwater had been stripped of his title by the Alpha Council and exiled, his territory divided among Alphas who'd proven themselves worthy. Refugees from across the territories had flooded to the north, knowing they'd find protection and acceptance here. And our family had grown in ways I'd never imagined possible. "Your Majesties," Garrett called, running over with flushed cheeks. "Can we show you the new defensive formation we learned?" "Of course," Kale said warmly. "Let's see what you've got, warrior." As our children performed for us, as Morrigan arrived with reports of 3 more orphans who needed homes, as messengers brought word of Omegas throughout the territories, finding new courage to stand up for their rights, I realized something profound. My inability to bear children hadn't been a curse. It had been preparation, because if I'd been able to have biological children easily, I might never have opened my heart so wide, might never have understood the transformative power of chosen family, might never have become the champion for the rejected and broken that the North needed. The moon, in her wisdom, had shaped me through pain for a purpose I couldn't have imagined. And now, surrounded by the family I'd built through choice and love, carrying a child who was both miracle and mystery, I understood the final truth. I was never broken. I was always perfect, exactly as I was meant to be. The morning sun broke over Thornridge Keep, painting the stone walls in shades of gold and amber. I stood at the nursery window, cradling our daughter Luna, named for the moon goddess who'd brought us together as she nursed contentedly. She was 8 months old now, with Kale's steel-gray eyes and my pale blonde hair. A miracle child. A blessing neither of us had expected, but both treasured beyond measure. "There you are." Kale's voice came from the doorway, warm with affection. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around us both, pressing a kiss to my temple. "I woke up and you were gone. Again. She was hungry," I said softly, watching Luna's tiny hand clutch at my finger. "And I like these quiet moments. Before the keep wakes up and the day's chaos begins." "Chaos," Kale repeated with a laugh. "Is that what we're calling 7 children? A pack of 1,000 wolves? And the constant stream of refugees seeking sanctuary?" "Yes," I said, turning to smile at him. "Beautiful, perfect chaos." And it was. In the 2 years since our claiming, our family had grown beyond anything I could have imagined. After Garrett, Cole, and Astrid had come twin boys Marcus and Matthias, whose parents had died in a flood. Then Iris, a 10-year-old girl with a gift for healing who reminded me painfully of myself at that age. Each child was chosen, each one loved, each one proof that family was built through love, not just blood. "The delegation from the Eastern Territories arrives this afternoon," Kale reminded me gently. "They want to discuss implementing your Omega protection laws in their lands." Pride swelled in my chest, but not for myself, for what we'd accomplished together. The Omega Protection Act, as it was now called, had a revolutionized pack law across the territories. No longer could Omegas be cast out for being barren or disabled. No longer could they be denied education, property rights, or the ability to choose their own mates. It had been my first major initiative as queen, born from my own suffering, and it had changed everything. "I still can't believe they're actually adopting it," I murmured. 2 years ago, I was the cursed Omega everyone pitied. Now I'm writing laws that protect wolves like I used to be. "You were always worthy of writing those laws," Kale corrected, his hand coming to rest on Luna's downy head. "You just needed the platform to be heard, and now you have it. Queen Sera, champion of the vulnerable, voice of the voiceless." "You're being dramatic," I accused, but I was smiling. "I'm being truthful." He turned me to face him, careful not to disturb Luna. "Do you remember what you said to me the night I claimed you? When you were terrified and convinced you'd ruin my life?" "I said a lot of things that night." I hedged. "You said, 'I don't know how to be worth choosing.'" His eyes held mine. "And I told you I'd teach you, show you every day that you were worthy." "You did," I whispered. "You do. But that's not what happened, is it?" His smile was tender. "You didn't need me to teach you your worth, Sera. You discovered it yourself. Through helping others, through building this family, through standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. I just gave you the safety to become who you always were." Tears pricked my eyes, the good kind, the healing kind. "We gave each other that safety." "Yes," he agreed. "We did. And now look at what we've built." A commotion in the hallway interrupted us, the sound of multiple small feet running, followed by Morrigan's exasperated voice. "Children, no running in the corridors. You'll wake the baby." "Too late," I laughed as our bedroom door burst open. Garrett appeared first, now 12 and already showing signs of the powerful alpha he'd become. Behind him came the others in a chaotic tumble, Finn and Mara, Cole and Astrid, the twins, and Iris bringing up the rear with an apologetic expression. "Mother! Father!" Astrid cried, launching herself at Kale's legs. "Grandmother says there's going to be a feast tonight. Is it true?" "Yes, little one," Kale said, scooping her up with one arm while keeping the other around me and Luna. "We're hosting guests from the Eastern Territories. Will there be dancing?" Mara asked hopefully. "And music?" "Of course," I assured her. "And you'll all be expected to attend, on your best behavior." A collective groan rose from the older children, making Morrigan, who'd appeared in the doorway, laugh. "Oh, stop your complaining," she said, moving into the room with the confidence of a woman who'd raised kings. "When I was your age, formal dinners were the highlight of the season. You children are spoiled with all your freedom and running wild through the keep." "Freedom we're grateful for, grandmother," Garrett said with a diplomatic smile that made Kale beam with pride. "But we promise to behave tonight. See that you do," Morrigan replied, but her eyes were soft. She'd taken to being a grandmother with the same fierce love she'd shown me from the beginning. "Now, let your parents have their morning. You all have lessons with the tutors in an hour." More groans, but the children filed out obediently. Garrett paused at the door, looking back at us with an expression far older than his years. "Father?" he said quietly. "Mother? Thank you for choosing us, for giving us this." My throat tightened. "Garrett, I know you tell us all the time," he continued, his voice cracking slightly. "But I wanted to say it when the others weren't listening. Before you found us, Cole and Astrid and me, we were alone, scared. I thought I'd have to raise them by myself, that no one would ever want a package deal of 3. Broken kids. You were never broken," I said firmly, crossing to him. Luna had finished nursing and was starting to doze, so I shifted her to one arm and pulled Garrett close with the other. "You were surviving, and that takes incredible strength. You showed us we could do more than survive," he said against my shoulder. "You showed us we could thrive, be loved, be chosen." He pulled back, swiping at his eyes. "So thank you, for seeing us, for wanting us. Always," Kale said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're our son, Garrett. As much as Luna is our daughter, blood doesn't make family, love does. And we will always, always choose you." After Garrett left walking taller, I noticed Morrigan approached with a knowing smile. "He needed to hear that," she said. "They all do, regularly. Children who've been abandoned carry those wounds deep. Your constant reassurance is what heals them." "I know," I said softly, thinking of my own childhood wounds. "I carry some of those, same scars. Maybe that's why the moon brought us together, these children and us. We understand each other's pain." "And you teach each other that pain doesn't define worth," Morrigan agreed. She reached out to stroke Luna's cheek with gentle fingers. "This little one will grow up knowing she's no more or less loved than her siblings. What a gift that is." "She'll grow up knowing that families come in all forms," I said. "That love is a choice we make every day, not just a biological imperative. That's the real legacy I want to leave, not laws or political changes, but a new understanding of what it means to be pack, to be family." Morrigan's eyes glistened with tears. "You've already left that legacy, my dear. Don't you see? The refugees who come here seeking safety, the orphans who find homes, the Omegas who stand up for their rights because you showed them how they're all part of your legacy. You've changed the North, and through the North, you're changing all the territories." "We've changed them," I corrected. "Kale and I together." "Yes," Kale agreed, wrapping his arms around me from behind again, completing our little family circle. Together, always together. That evening, the great hall blazed with light and life. The delegation from the Eastern Territories was led by Alpha Jameson, a weathered wolf in his 50s who'd ruled his lands with traditional firmness but fair judgment. He'd come with his daughter Lyra, a sharp-eyed young alpha female who would inherit his territory. "Queen Sera," Alpha Jameson said, bowing respectfully. "Thank you for receiving us. I've heard remarkable things about the changes you've implemented here." "The changes we've implemented together," I corrected, gesturing to Kale beside me and the assembled council. "True reform requires everyone's commitment, not just royal decree." Spoken like a true leader, Lyra observed, studying me with frank curiosity. Forgive my boldness, Your Majesty, but I must ask, is it true you were once rejected by your own pack? Considered cursed? The question would have shattered me 2 years ago. Now, I met her gaze steadily. Yes, it's true. I was diagnosed as Barren at 16 and treated as worthless by my pack. I lived in the servants' quarters, was attacked, belittled, and made to feel like my existence was a burden. Lyra's eyes widened. And yet now you're queen. How? Because the Alpha King saw past what I couldn't provide to who I actually was, I said simply. And because I learned that my worth wasn't determined by my ability to bear children, but by the strength of my character, the depth of my compassion, and the courage to keep going despite the pain. I gestured to our children, seated at a nearby table, watching the proceedings with interest. 5 of my 7 children are adopted, I continued, orphans who lost their parents to war or disaster. I chose them, and they chose me. And together we built a family based on love, rather than bloodline. And my youngest daughter? I smiled. She's what the healers would call a miracle. Proof that sometimes what seems impossible becomes possible when you stop measuring worth by society's standards. Alpha Jameson nodded slowly. That's why we're here, Your Majesty. In my territory, we have many Omegas in situations similar to what you described. Cast out, abused, treated as less than. I've watched your reforms with interest, and I want to implement them in the East. But more than that, I want my people to understand why these changes matter. Then perhaps you should hear from those most affected, I suggested. I gestured to where Ilara sat, the Omega who'd arrived 2 years ago with the first group of refugees. She now served as my chief advisor on Omega affairs. Ilara rose gracefully, no longer the terrified, scarred woman who'd fled the West. She'd found her strength here, found her voice. Alpha Jameson, Lady Lyra, she said, her voice clear and confident. 2 years ago, I fled Alpha Blackwater's territory with 13 others. We were starving, beaten, brutalized. We believed we deserved it because we'd been taught our entire lives that Omegas existed only to serve Alphas. She moved to stand beside my throne, and I felt fierce pride in how far she'd come. Queen Sera didn't just give us sanctuary, Ilara continued. She gave us dignity. She showed us that being Omega wasn't a weakness, but a different kind of strength. She created laws that protected us, yes, but more importantly, she changed hearts and minds. She made the North understand that a pack is only as strong as its most vulnerable members. And what of the Alphas? Lyra challenged. Do they not resent these changes? Resent having their traditional authority limited? Some did, at first, Kale interjected, his voice carrying Alpha authority. Change is always difficult, but I made it clear that any Alpha who couldn't adapt to treating all pack members with respect would be removed from power. And an interesting thing happened once we raised the standard of behavior expected. Wolves rose to meet it. He stood, commanding the room's attention. The Alphas who remained didn't become weaker by respecting Omegas and Betas. They became better leaders, more thoughtful, more strategic, more concerned with justice than just power. And our pack has thrived as a result. We're stronger now than we've ever been. Because strength doesn't come from domination, I added softly. It comes from unity, from every wolf knowing they have value and purpose, from building each other up rather than tearing each other down. Alpha Jameson was quiet for a long moment, then nodded decisively. We'll implement your reforms. All of them. And I'd like to request that you send advisors, perhaps Ilara and others, to help guide the transition. Of course, I agreed. We're stronger together. All the territories. That's always been my vision, not just reforming the North, but creating a new standard for all wolf kind. As the feast continued, as our children mingled with the delegates and showed them the warmth and love that defined our pack, I felt Kale's hand find mine under the table. Tired? He murmured. A little, I admitted, but happy. So incredibly happy. Good. He raised our joined hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. Because I have something to tell you. My heart skipped. What? The Western Territories sent word today. With Blackwater gone, they've chosen a new Alpha, a female Omega named Rhiannon, who survived his brutality and rose to lead the resistance against him. His eyes gleamed. She's requesting a meeting with you. Says you inspired her to claim her power. Tears sprang to my eyes. An Omega Alpha? An Omega Alpha, he confirmed. The first in recorded history. She's already implementing your protection laws and asking for guidance on adoption practices. Apparently, she's opened her home to displaced Omegas and their children. She's building what we built, I whispered, awed, creating family from choice and love. You're changing the world, Sera. One heart, one law, one rescued child at a time. He pulled me closer. I am so proud to be your mate, so honored to stand beside you. I couldn't do any of this without you, I said. You gave me the platform, the protection, the confidence to believe I could make a difference. No, his voice was firm. I gave you safety. You already had everything else, the courage, the compassion, the vision. You just needed to believe in yourself. And now look at you. My queen. My mate, the mother of our children and the champion of the vulnerable. Everything you were always meant to be. I leaned into him, watching our children laugh with the delegates' children, watching Alara speak with confidence to Alpha Jameson, watching Morrigan wipe proud tears from her eyes. This was my life now. This was my purpose. Not to bear children, though I'd been blessed with that miracle. Not to be decorative, or silent, or subservient, but to lead with compassion. To protect the vulnerable. To show the world that worth wasn't measured by what you could provide, but by who you chose to be. I'd been called cursed, broken, worthless. But the truth was, I'd always been perfect. I just needed someone to see it, to believe it, to give me the space to believe it myself. And now, surrounded by the family I'd built and the pack I'd transformed, I finally understood the deepest truth of all. The curse had never been real. The only thing that had ever been broken was the world's understanding of what it meant to be whole, and I'd spent my queenship showing them a better way. One heart at a time, one law at a time, one chosen child at a time. That was my legacy. That was my purpose. That was my happy ending, not in spite of the pain I'd endured, but because of it. Because sometimes, the things that break us are exactly what prepare us to heal others, and in healing them, we finally heal ourselves. I found Kale in his study late one evening, staring at a map of the territories spread across his desk. He didn't hear me enter, lost in thought, his profile illuminated by candlelight. For a moment, I simply watched him, this alpha king who'd chosen a broken Omega and changed the world because of it. You're thinking too loud, I said softly, echoing his words from years ago. He looked up, and his expression transformed from serious to tender in an instant. Come here, he said, holding out his hand. I crossed to him, settling into his lap as naturally as breathing. 5 years of being his mate, his queen, his partner, and I still felt that flutter in my chest when he looked at me like I was his entire world. What were you thinking about? I asked, tracing the map with one finger. Every territory now bore the symbol of the Omega Protection Alliance, a crescent moon cradling a wolf. I was thinking about the day I found you, he said quietly. You were changing linens in my chambers, wearing a servant's dress, your eyes down like you didn't deserve to be seen. And I remember thinking, there she is. The one I've been searching for. I was terrified, I admitted. I thought you'd realize your mistake and send me away. I knew you were terrified. I could smell it on you, fear and shame, and the absolute certainty that you weren't worthy of being chosen. His hand came up to cup my face, and I knew in that moment that my purpose wasn't just to rule the North. It was to show you that you were wrong, that you'd always been worthy. You did more than show me, I whispered. You gave me the space to discover it myself. And then you gave me the platform to help others discover it too. He gestured to the map. 12 territories now. 12 alphas who've adopted your laws, your vision, your understanding that strength comes from protecting the vulnerable, not dominating them. Our vision, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without your support. Without you backing every initiative, every reform, every unconventional choice. Like adopting 7 children instead of obsessing over bloodlines? He smiled. Best decision we ever made. Well, second best. First was claiming you. Through the open door, we could hear distant laughter, our children, still awake despite the late hour, probably conspiring with Morrigan, who spoiled them shamelessly. Garrett starts his alpha training next month, Kale said. He'll be ready to lead his own territory someday. And Iris is already more skilled than our head healer. And Luna asks every day when her baby brother or sister will arrive. I added, my hand moving unconsciously to my rounded belly. Yes, another miracle. Another impossible blessing. I never believed I'd have one child from my body, I murmured. And now we're expecting our second. The healers still can't explain it. I can, Kale said. Simply, love heals, the mate bond heals. You were never truly cursed, Sera. You were just waiting for the right moment, the right mate, the right love to unlock what was always possible. Maybe, I said. Or maybe the moon knew I needed to understand rejection before I could truly appreciate being chosen. Needed to feel worthless before I could recognize my worth. Needed to be broken before I could help heal others. Deep thoughts for late evening, he teased gently. I've been thinking about writing it all down, I confessed. My story, not as a queen's memoir, but as a message to every Omega, every wolf, every person who's been told they're not enough. I want them to know that the voices that call us worthless are lying, that we get to define our own worth. You should write it, Kale encouraged. Your words have power, my love. You've proven that already. A knock interrupted us. Garrett stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. I'm sorry to disturb you, he said, but there's someone at the gates. A young Omega from the Southern Territories. She's asking for sanctuary, she says. He swallowed hard. She says she's Barren and her pack cast her out. She heard about Queen Sera and thought maybe, here, she could find a place where she mattered. My heart clenched. This girl, she was me 5 years ago. Desperate, rejected, convinced of her own worthlessness. I stood immediately, Kale rising with me. Bring her to the receiving room, make sure she has warm food and clean clothes, and tell her. My voice caught. Tell her she's safe now. Tell her she's home. After Garrett left, Kale pulled me close. You can't save everyone, you know. No, I agreed, but I can save this one. And tomorrow, maybe another. And the day after that, another still. One heart at a time, until every rejected Omega knows what I know now. And what's that? He asked softly. I looked up at him, this king who'd seen my worth when no one else could, who'd given me the courage to see it myself. That being chosen isn't what makes us worthy, I said. We were always worthy. We just needed someone to reflect that truth back to us until we could see it for ourselves. Then let's go reflect that truth to another lost soul, Kale said, taking my hand. As we walked toward the receiving room, toward another Omega who needed hope, I thought about how far I'd come. From the cursed girl scrubbing dishes to the queen reforming territories, from the rejected Omega to the voice of the voiceless. But the most important transformation hadn't been my title or my status. It had been learning that I was perfect exactly as I was. Curse and all, barrenness and all, brokenness and all, because none of those things had ever been real. The only thing that had been real was love. And love true, unconditional, chose you anyway love could heal anything. Even a heart that thought it was beyond repair. Especially that. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.